Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry. Today we are talking about a Tier 6 premium Dutch destroyer, the T-61. You mean it's not a Dutch destroyer? Well, yes, it looks very German, but the T-61 actually existed. Well, part of it really, because after the Germans had invaded the Netherlands, they found, well, the dockyards mostly intact, and the Dutch had some material laying around, so they decided to use said materials and, the dockyard workers, since they were there, to build a bunch of destroyers. Well, actually, they called them torpedo boat. Well, in German, torpedo boat, which is extremely close, and that's where the T comes from. There was supposed to be a whole bunch of them. The problem that turned out was that for some obscure reason, the Dutch dockyard workers were somewhat disinclined to actually work for the Germans and made everything very, very difficult. I wonder why that was. Anyhow, the T-61 was to a degree finished, and the Germans were trying to actually tow her away from the port, from the dockyard, but she was sunk by a British air wing, and that was the end of it. So none of these ships, as far as I know, actually ever made it into service, really. But technically, somewhat of a Dutch destroyer. Anyway, obviously now it's in the German tech tree. It's a premium, and it's tier 6. So the obvious thing to do, comparison-wise, is to have a quick look how she compares to the Ernst Gede, the other tier 6 tech tree destroyer. Well, on the traditional line, not on the Scout Cruiser line. T-61 gets an extra engine boost, but otherwise the skills are completely identical. And you can kind of already see from the little shape of the capability tree here that these two ships are not very different. She does get worse armor and lower hit points. She's a bit slower, even still, than the Gede, but a tiny bit more maneuverable. The guns are completely identical. So we've got the 428mm. If you see that and you get confused about it from time to time, about the mentions that there's a 127mm and 128mm, they were, and this is a very un-German thing to do for some reason, I will actually have to check why that is at some day, but they were officially labeled 127mm, but had an actual caliber of 128mm. So the bore diameter was 1mm larger than the designation, which annoys me every time I see that, but it is what it is. So same guns, 4 singles, relatively rapid reload, and powerful armor piercing. The torpedoes, of all intents and purposes, the same, only that they get 0.6 kilometer extra range. And the AAA is completely unimportant, but the concealment is slightly better. So I would say this is a black Ernst Gede, almost, because the differences between the two ships are really not that huge. So what have I done with the ship then? Given that it's a tier 6 and it's a premium, put a historical camo on it. It's not super expensive yet at that tier. It gives its main battery range and torpedo range, which is good, traverse speed, which is good, and surface detection, which is also good. So you maybe wouldn't be buying historical camo on a tier 6 tech tree ship unless you're really planning to spend a long time and just keep the ship, or if you just really enjoy the ship. I have a couple of tier 6 tech tree ships. Well, I'm not sure about the couple bit, but I at least one, the Nuremberg, has a historical camo in my personal, because I just like the ship so much. But for premium, that's a different story, because you can always cycle a commander in and just play them for fun from time to time, or for division play. Before we go to the equipment, actually, let me go back here and look at the, there we go, the elite bonus. You get the choice between better guns and better torpedoes, and I would recommend going for the guns, because this is a German destroyer and the guns are fun on these things, even though it is a Dutch torpedo boat. Equipment-wise, main battery mod 2 for better reload is what I personally like, so gunboat build You could probably also use the traverse, but honestly, 15 degrees is workable. Propulsion in slot 2 is a no-brainer, and so is concealment in 3. Using a speed, because the one thing that's really a little bit hampering her is the low speed. They're cruisers far faster in this tier, but the propulsion mod 2 is just really adding a percentage on it, and it's really not making a massive difference if you're starting with a relatively low value to begin with, because it's only 5% extra. Concealment, given that this is a very sneaky ship, I think is the better choice here, and also in general, because you can surprise enemy destroyers. You've got sonar, and this can make quite a bit of an impact. I didn't have a level 6 commander around, so I've just reset one and just ignore the other tiers. But you can get yourself an extra sonar if you want to, and use the recon and surveillance skill. You could also use exploit weakness. It depends a little bit what you're more comfortable with, because this ship is actually relatively capable of stealth torpedoing, and the torpedoes are reloading reasonably fast. That you can play this as a torpedo boat if you're not comfortable with gunboating. The high explosive on the German destroyers is pretty good, actually, unusually good. And so as such, you could also play with exploit weakness if you're planning to go more for a sort of ranged damage build thing. But this is a German destroyer. Really, the one way for me is to go in and have fun with it. And then going forward, you obviously want the engine overload and eventually the APCS, because the 128s are powerful, but they're probably not going to overpenetrate like the extremely hard-hitting 150s that you find on the alternative scout cruiser line. That's pretty much all we've got to say about this ship. It really is an Ernst-gated, which is slightly better. So with all these modifications, I've got less hit points, which kind of leans towards a bit more of a conservative playstyle, but it's tier 6, what you're going to do. Speed is a bit on the low end, but we've got the gun reload down to almost 4 second base. And we've got the torpedo range up to over 8 kilometers with a concealment of 5 kilometers. So you've got a very comfortable torpedo range for stealth torping. And you've got 3 engine boosts to work with. So even though the speed is a bit lower, you can still make use of those engine boosts. So let's get into some games and see her in action. The first round is a domination battle on Big Race, and we are top tier, so it's a tier 6 game. There's a carrier in play, the enemy Bogue, up against Normandy, Fuso, and Agincourt, Nuremberg, Auba, and a Marblehead. No enemy destroyers. I'm the only destroyer in this village, but the guns are probably capable of dealing with cruisers as well. So let's get going. Given that I am the only destroyer in this, and it is a domination battle, my obvious first task is to go and, as much as possible, grab some capture circles. Marblehead's not particularly dangerous. Nuremberg and Agincourt are the two that I'd be concerned about. So let's see how this ends up. But I am spawning closer to A-cap, so that's where I'm going to go. Armor piercing, narrow spread, engine boost up, and off we go. I'm comfortably able to outspot anything in this game, except for the carrier. Obviously, if I can get air spotted, but it's a mid-tier game. The carriers tend to not be too particularly skilled when it comes to scouting and similar things. So, oftentimes, and the enemy carrier isn't even sending anything out yet. So either he's gonna AFK or he's repositioning. No, he doesn't. He's not repositioning. So. Well, we might be up against an AFK carrier. We'll see. But we've got a pretty good idea who's coming where, and there is a cruiser coming my way. So who is that? It is the Marblehead. Not the greatest cruiser out there. So obviously he's spotted, but he's been air spotted. So he doesn't necessarily know. That I'm here. But if he's paying attention and seeing the capture circle flipped, he should. He should see the cruiser who's right behind me. Yep, he's opening up at that cruiser, so now I can start shooting him. And see what we can do with the guns here. Not an awful lot, actually. Yeah, he's noticed me, so torpedoes out, and somebody else is shooting at me as well. So that's why I'm using this island here. But my team is clustering around the rear. We've just citadeled to Normandy. My team's clustering around a bit at the rear, so nobody wants to go anywhere further. So I'm now getting shot at by everybody, including the Nürnberg, which is not good news. So that Alba needs to die. He's on low hit points. He's already getting dropped. Yeah, I think the enemy... I haven't seen any enemy planes just yet. But that Alba is dead. I think the carrier might have been AFK. So see, the thing with the Nürnberg is that the Nürnberg can hurt me pretty bad. But I can also hurt him right back. There come some torpedoes. There's that Normandy that we were dealing with earlier. So he's otherwise engaged. So let's drop some torpedoes in his general direction. Get the island between him and me. And the Nürnberg is reversing because he is now being focused down by that whole bulk of battleships. So we can join in the fun and see if we can finish that thing off. And then, yep, that's the Nürnberg down. And that's the Normandy down. And now I can grab B-Cup. One of the cruisers has gone around the long way. And we have lost our carrier. To what exactly? I haven't paid attention. Someone killed our carrier. I'm not sure who did, but maybe he's been pulling forward too much. But I mean, it's only fair because the enemy carrier appears to be AFK. So, Fuso, are you coming out of there? Well, I'm going to grab the capture circle. Are you going to come out of there? Well, either you're coming out, in which case you're running into my torpedoes, or you're not, in which case I'm coming around the other side, and I'm going to torpedo you, because by then my torpedoes are going to have reloaded. So let's head over there. Somebody has taken back A-Cup. That would have been the Marblehead. We've got a bunch of battleships who are hanging back, but the Dallas is now, that was looping around C-Cup, is now having fun shooting at the AFK Bogue, while the Fuso is failing to do something about a point-blank light cruiser. Well, that did a bit. So I'm going to go in and help then, because that Bogue's going to be dead in a minute. So, get another salvo off. It's fine. Dallas can finish him off. There he goes. Fuso, hello. Remember me? Have some torpedoes. And Fuso is now, again, in a point-blank duel with a Dallas. And failing to do an awful lot about it, to be fair. But yeah, Fuso is now going to be introduced to the sharp end of my torpedoes. And the Dallas has actually successfully navigated around the Fuso. If you are shooting at battleships, you know, you can either try to go for the deck hits or for the more reliable penetrations at the bow section. And these guns are going to do a lot of damage. So, given that the Fuso is otherwise occupied and hasn't learned yet that he can turn his ship around rather than trying to wait for his guns to turn around, he is now a very dead Fuso. Well, since the Dallas takes him out, and that leaves the Marblehead over there. Hello, Mr. Marblehead. You have run out of friends. How did that go so wrong so quickly? So, of course, he's shooting at me because I'm a destroyer, and rightfully so, but that also means that he's ignoring the Dallas over there, who now gets to shoot at him in return. And that is a dead Marblehead. I'm just mentioning that I could have already have a Kraken at this point, but it's alright. There's only one Agincourt left. We're not getting the Rufflestomp medal because our carrier got himself killed by something. I still have to check in edit what that was, but Agincourt is also dead now. And yeah, so we have relatively successfully dominated this game. But this is, you see what you can sort of do with the concealment and with the torpedoes. The one thing that you do need to be a little bit careful about is getting too close and getting yourself spotted. But yeah, that mid-tier games. They tend to be all-out brawls and fun. This was actually a relatively strategic mid-tier game. In the second round, we're playing Domination on Aurora. This time it is a 4v4. We're up against Gneisenau, Bayern, Farragut, and Fubuki. So technically a tier 7 game. We do have an Akatsuki on our side. The one nasty thing here is that these are American carriers, even though they're bots. And the problem with American bot carriers is that they have dive bombers. And dive bombers automatically hit. Which can get really nasty. So, where are we going to go? Over to the armor piercing. Well, we're just going to go over to A-Cup. Really doesn't make an awful lot of difference. I should be relatively... Okay, that's a bot. I should be relatively easily able to outspot most of the things. Not 100% certain with things like the Fubu, but 5.1 kilometer I think is pretty much best in class, or close to best in class. Very, very sneaky German destroyer for a T6. So just not very fast. 36.5 knots is a bit pedestrian, but you really wouldn't want to trade the concealment for that. Anyway, we'll head over into A Cup and see what we can find ourselves here. We can find ourselves a battleship. Now that's either the Bayern or the Gneisenau, but it's in either case it's a player. So it is the Bayern. Okay, hello Bayern. Hello Mr. Fubuki. That's a bot Fubuki, so I really don't care about him. Now what is that Bayern doing? Because he knows he's spotted, but he hasn't seen me. So who's he engaging? Where are you going? Are you going to turn? Are you going to come around? Let's see. Okay, there's also a player Fubuki. Now, there comes the carrier. Yep, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, he's got double fire. Is he Dameconing that? He is not. No, he is. Okay, so we might be able to get a permaflood on him. Let's get the sonar up and start engaging the enemy Fubuki and wait to see what if the Bayern is making up his mind what to do next. Fubuki, I'm not even going to bother with the torpedoes. I'm just going to use the guns against. And we'll see what he's up to. Bayern doesn't have angles at me, so I don't really have to be afraid of his secondaries. The bot Fubuki is next to me, so we'll drop torpedoes into that opening there and see if the Bayern comes out. There, have some more torpedoes. If the enemy Fubuki runs into those, then I'm all for it. But if the Bayern runs into them, also good. In either case, we're torpedoing something, and it looks like we'll be hitting the Bayern. No flood, unfortunately. They've got another spread coming. But yeah, he's noticed that, so that one's missed. So no permaflood for me, but I do have support here now from the friendly Fuso. And the Bayern's got the HE loaded and is shooting at me. Interesting choice. I am actually flying the community contributor profile picture again for change. So now the Fuso is engaging him and my torpedoes are reloaded, so that is a dead Bayern. And we can concentrate on grabbing some capture circles because we don't have any and we've both lost the destroyer so far. Okay, Bayern is dead as disco. There comes the carrier. The carrier should be dropping the Fuso instead of me, yeah. There comes some Fubuki torpedoes. And these were actually carrier torpedoes. I don't think these were meant for me. But this should now be a dead Bayern. And Fuso actually takes him out. Okay, well, I'm okay with that. Fubuki is somewhere in that general direction. And there's the Gneisenau. Hello, Mr. Gneisenau. We are now ahead on points because we're leading now by 2 kills. But there were plenty of bots in the game, so this might still turn around. Hello, Fubuki. Yeah, I knew you were there somewhere. Let's get the sonar up and see if he's got any more. But I don't think he's got torpedoes around because he just fired. But he might have reloaded in time. Just about, so let's be better safe than sorry. And the Gneisenau is about to run into an island, I believe. So these are airdrop torpedoes. Yeah, Gneisenau is... Ow, and that was the carrier. You see, this is what I'm talking about. Even bot carriers, if they're Americans, I can be really nasty. Okay, let's drop the torpedoes. I don't know what exactly the Gneisenau is doing. If he's reversing, not many people can do this if they're focused in. If he's reversing or if he just keeps firing his guns, he's definitely seen me. So he is shooting at me, and it looks like he's reversing. So most of these torpedoes are going to miss, unfortunately. But there is the Fubuki, so we can kite away because we don't want to be hit by the Gneisenau secondaries if we can avoid it. And just once again, yep, we've still got a torpedo hit in and 2, but that could have been a dead Gneisenau if I had guessed that he was reversing. It was a 50-50. He was either reversing or he was going to keep sailing into the island. So let's gun down the Fubuki if we can manage, while avoiding any eventual torpedoes and the secondaries from the Gneisenau. And we just have to hit him once, I believe, at this point. Black Bayern is going to take him out if he can hit him. But I get him first. Okay, so that thing's dead, and that just leaves the Gneisenau and the carrier. So now we can head back into P-Cup and make ourselves useful. So, T-61. Is it a great ship? It's a fun ship. It's a very sneaky German destroyer. It's a sneaky Ernstgede with slightly better torpedo range. It's basically a black Ernstgede. And you have fewer hit points, less armor, so you have to be a little bit more careful in... And yet you see again the enemy carrier scoring fires with his dive bombers. You've got to be a little bit a little bit more careful with the ship because it's a bit more fragile than the Gator, but it's still a good ship. And if you are like, there's no real special captain skill, like special captain skills that you need. So if you just want to have a captain trainer for the German destroyer line, then absolutely, that's a ship you can take. And that Gneis now has been Fusoed, so he dead. So my torpedoes are useless there. But that's fine. They reload reasonably quickly, and now we just have to wipe out the carrier. Yes, it's a nice ship to have, I'd say, especially if you're grinding through the line and you just enjoy German destroyers and you want to occasionally drop into mid tier and just have some fun or do some captain training, these kind of things. I don't mind it too much that it's not a super unique ship. And yeah, like I said, I would probably rather consider it as a black ship than an actual unique premium that is different from everything else that you can find in the line. So while we're killing the bot ranger there, that's pretty much what I would say that ship is. So yeah, I could recommend if you get it, just be aware that it's not in any way super unique or anything else. And if you, which is also good on the other side. So if you don't want to pay money, or you don't want to buy the ship, or you don't want to pay your shipyard resources if it's in the shipyard at some point or something like that, you can always just use the Ernst Gede, which for all intents and purposes is pretty much the same ship. Slight differences, but marginal enough that I would say if you want to keep that as a tier 6 German destroyer, that's also a viable choice, and you can do the exact same things in that thing. So it's something for everybody. Anyway, that's it for me today. Thanks everybody, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.